Let me ask you a question. What color are you? Raise your hand if you thought brown. Can you hold that thought for a bit? If only I had studied this instead of that, I could have been much happier. If I did have these responsibilities, I could have followed my passion. She's so lucky she makes a living out of what she loves. It's too late for me now. If you have had any of the above thoughts, you will want to continue listening while I tell you a story. I was the first of 4 siblings born to hard-working middle-class parents whose sole ambition in life was to ensure a good education for their children. The typical Indian family, you know the type. We were sent to reputed schools and our studies were supervised to ensure we didn't slack off or, heaven forbid, let our rank slide in class. But here's the interesting part. My mom, a school teacher, and dad, a businessman, loved the arts. Poetry, literature, theatre, cinema, these made up our staple dinner table conversations. Bedtime stories were enactments of with mom and I taking on more than one character and going to town with voices and expressions. It did not come as a surprise then to anyone that I gravitated toward the stage very early in life. The spotlight is where I shone brightest. It was also the place I was happiest. I did not know it then, but that was a sign. Now, just beyond my bubble of Austen and Dickens, Ghalib and Gulzar, Hitchcock and Ray, loomed large the backdrop of academics. When I was growing up, medicine, engineering, law were considered serious career choices. Everything else was frivolous. But my mother, who had unwittingly sown the seed of who I was to become, had at that point of time decided, with the unflinching misplaced goodwill most Indian mothers have, that I was going to be a doctor. No, I was not party to that decision. There was no discussion. To say I felt betrayed would be an understatement. But arguing was pointless and rebelling was unheard of. So I set off on the long, arduous journey that the study of medicine is. My happiest moments during those years were when I was on stage. A cultural festival, a debate competition, hosting the annual event, these made the rest of the year bearable. Another sign. 6 years later, armed with a medical degree, I walked into Lintas, an advertising agency, to do a copywriter's test. I thought I was being a rebel, but in truth, I was just addressing the restlessness inside me. But I was too scared to give it all up just yet. I mean, I had spent 6 years studying to be a doctor. How could I just walk away? But it didn't just feel like a right fit. So I decided I'd study nutrition. At least I'd be within the health industry, so to speak. I was refused admission because I was apparently overqualified. I had to argue my case before the vice chancellor and a room full of formidable looking old gentlemen that made up the university board. A year and a diploma later, I still felt something was missing. My search led me to La Leche League, an international organization that supports and promotes breastfeeding. I studied some more and became part of a passionate band of doctors committed to making hospitals baby-friendly. Interestingly, I discovered that listening to, talking and empathizing with overwhelmed, struggling new mothers came naturally to me. I found the human interaction strangely fulfilling. But let's take a look at some people whom we admire. Harrison Ford, the Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark legend. He was a carpenter before he became a Hollywood superstar. Julia Child. Remember the movie Julia and Julia based on her life? She worked for the Office of Strategic Services, which later became the CIA, then went to culinary school and introduced French cuisine to the world. Walt Disney, The genius behind Mickey Mouse, Disney World, and so much more, was an ambulance driver in the First World War. Then became a newspaper cartoonist, was fired because he had no imagination, produced the first cartoon series, Alice in Cartoonland, established Walt Disney Pictures, and the rest is history. Roald Dahl. What would a child's world be without his books? Long after he's gone, every book still flies off the shelf. He was a fighter pilot in the Second World War before he became a children's book writer. Benedict Cumberbatch, right up there with the greats of theatre and cinema. Believe it or not, he was an English teacher at a Tibetan monastery in Darjeeling before going back to Manchester, studying acting and becoming world-renowned for his craft. Closer to home, Aarti Kumar Rao, an MSc in physics, went on to become a journalist with a popular magazine, went back and did her master's, MBA, did a corporate stint, then became a landscape chronicler and a National Geographic explorer. This list goes on. But do you see a pattern emerging? There is a clearly visible, erratic, illogical zigzag path. There is a being lost before arriving. There is always chaos before clarity. Now, while many have found their calling, the scale clearly tips on the side of those who put their heads down and walk the beaten path, who choose the safety of sanity over the gamble for passion. But let's go back to the crazies. Did they all wake up one morning with an epiphany saying, "This is what I have to do"? I doubt if you spoke to anyone who's jumped the fence, you'd discover it was because of divine revelation. No, it was clearly a process. Let us unravel and isolate the steps of this process. Number 1, listen to your inner voice. How do you do that? I'm sure you agree that you are more than your bodies, this outer shell that you reside in. You are your intellect, your feelings, your choices, your responses, your desires, your dreams. You are your soul. This soul has for company a voice that is constantly talking, feeding you self-doubt, or repeating things you hear around you all the time, the white noise. But underneath this noise are moments of, if only I had. I wish I could. I'd really love to. This makes me so happy. That is what you need to hear with clarity. If you can tune out the external stimulus and dial inward, you will be able to hear it. It takes some practice though. You have to train yourself to be able to do it. Let me explain. Do you know people who are so in tune with their bodies that they know exactly when to stop eating? They won't have another morsel if you beg them. And if they did, they'd have an immediate reaction and get sick. Their bodies absolutely refuse to take abuse. On the other hand, there are people who are so used to abusing their bodies that they can eat junk food every day and get away with it. Momentarily. In the long term, there are serious repercussions. So clearly, you have one group that has learned to listen to their bodies and another group that has yet to arrive at that learning. 50 years ago, there was no conversation about fitness. But today, body health is all we talk about. So, let's start a conversation about soul health. And you begin by tuning into your inner voice. It will not offer you a solution, but it will definitely point you in the right direction. Number 2, be willing to wander. Every stream that starts in the mountains finally ends in the sea. But that path is never its It's never a straight path from point A to point B. It meanders. What may look like aimlessly, strays away from the expected path, finds its course, gathering momentum and thundering before it falls into the ocean, coming home. It is worthwhile to note that it may have started as a trickle, but through that convoluted journey, it became bigger, stronger, louder, unstoppable. So experiment, explore, take a risk, or many. You will never know if something is a fit until you've tried it. That ambulance driver, that fired newspaper editor would never have become the Walt Disney we know if he hadn't taken the twisted road. Every trial is not an error, but every trial gets you closer to the answer. Number 3, be authentic. Bring 100% of yourself to the table every single day. Don't get distracted by instant gratification, fame, money, praise, or even criticism. All of these could be a flash in the pan if you lose your vision. Let your dream, or even the search of that dream, propel you. Ask yourself, am I excited to go to work every morning? Am I happy? Am I making a difference? Do I doubt my decision at night? Do I wish I could sometimes go back to my old job? The last 2 are clearly red flags. You might want to change your direction. Either way, be brutally honest with yourself and let that honesty reflect in everything you do. Number 4, ask for help. I have done it so many times. In this journey of self-discovery, if your intention is honest and your search is real, the path will miraculously clear when you least expect it to. People will show up to help you. And when that happens, don't sit on false modesty or bravado. Ask for help and receive it with grace and humility. And know this too, that no one comes to stay. The best of them will walk with you for a while, then go their own way because they have their journey to accomplish. You may never be able to pay them back. So, be grateful and pay it forward. That you owe the universe. Number 5, it's a lonely journey. You chose the road less traveled, so equip yourself for the long haul. Take care of your health. Read. Upgrade your skills. Do whatever it takes to keep moving forward. Travel light. You don't need the extra baggage. Guilt, envy, regret, these will only slow you down. Choose your music. Your conversations with God. The sound of the wind. The words of those who believed in you. That should be your playlist. Be prepared for scrapes and bruises. Allow yourself to fail and fall. Perfection is a myth. Best suited for the Instagram pages of 40-somethings going on 15. Lunch with the besties. Most importantly, keep your inner GPS on. Stay tuned to your voice. Number 6, pay the price. Nothing is free. You will experience heartbreak, failure, disappointment. You will have to sacrifice many things. Comfort, the security of a paycheck, a few years of your life. Definitely, most definitely sleep. The applause of the multitude. And sometimes even family and friends. But hey, you have reached this far, you're probably gathering momentum. Turning back now is not an option. The good news, though, is that there has never been a better time to take a risk. Our world today is designed to provide opportunity, to embrace the new and different. So if you have ever envied anyone who's living their dream, know that they have paid the price. Number 7, define your success. I was recently asked in an interview, do you think you are successful? I answered without batting an eyelid, hell yes. By my standards, I'm hugely successful. Success means different things for different people. For some, it might mean making it to the Forbes list. For some, it's 1 million Instagram followers. For yet others, it is winning a certain award. For some, it could be impacting the world, brokering peace, finding the cure for a disease, feeding a family in Yemen, or helping a child stand taller, look in the mirror and say, I'm okay. Everyone has a different standard. And the most foolish thing we could do is to borrow someone else's yardstick to measure our success. And finally, the road goes on. I hate to break it to you, but you have not arrived. If you are consumed by wanting to make a difference, you will realize that the road goes on. There it is, a step-by-step guide to creating clarity from chaos. If I had listened to the naysayers and not tuned in to the voice in my head, if I had not allowed for failure, if I had not defined my own success, I wouldn't be standing here delivering this talk. Some breaking news. The mavericks, the crazies, the path breakers, the beacons we look up to did not set out trying to be different. They were just tuned into the voice that drove them forward. The accolades and brickbats all fell by the way. They became the best in their pursuit of trying to become better every day. Remember, when you show up for who you really are, the world is richer for it. The human soul is not monochromatic. It is a kaleidoscope of patterns and colors. You have to keep turning till you find one that fits. So let me ask you again. What color are you?